then...
Have it inside pocket.
Sure. Well, actually,
Oh, okay.
just like that. And this can kind of clip on your waistband or go in your pocket, too. That works.
And set that to Gene.
You're able to kind of hide some of the cable in your pocket, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'll go on.
Okay. Joe, which side would you like to stand on?
Right there, you're perfect.
Right where you're standing is perfect. If you needed to grab something, go right
Yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to grab my my notebook.
Sure.
Just wrote down some notes so I knew exactly where I wanted to get to.
Looks like this gentleman's going to back out.
Yeah.
We'll let him do that.
So I run you guys over here.
No, we're ready. I saw you coming.
Still going.
So is there, well, I don't want to, are there particular things that you're looking for?
I guess,
as this?
first, what was your reaction to the incident that occurred in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
And your reaction to the news that Starbucks is doing the mandatory bias training?
Yeah.
What type of impact could that have on such a major corporation?
Yeah.
Is bias training something that, does it seem a bit too reactionary? Should this have been something that was happening once a year? I mean, I know at WCCO we get bias training.
Yep.
So it just seemed normal to me, but then I wondered maybe even a company as major as Starbucks I would have maybe expected. But
Yeah. And we'll kind of talk about that.
perfect.
Yeah, so frontline staff, certainly it's a different kind of thing than management.
Yes.
And so that comes into play in context of a particular environment comes into play. So.
Okay. Can I have you say and spell your first and last name for me?
Yes, my name is Andre Cohen, ANDREKOEN.
And what would your title be, Andre?
I'm the chief facilitator for AM Horizons Training Group.
And is it that you have a specialty when it comes to workplace bias or implicit bias?
Yeah, so I'm a adjunct professor at Bethel University, and I teach a course on educational equity. I also was the affirmative action officer for Anoka County for a number of years. And so with that and teaching high school and working in the community, that's where I cut my teeth.
Sure. So just over the weekend, it became such a big story across the nation, this incident that occurred at the Starbucks. Before the reaction from Starbucks' CEO, I guess, how were you perceiving that incident based on the information you had learned through news reports?
Well, it was very interesting. It wasn't a surprising thing. I know that local establishments, particularly frontline kinds of staff, typically make their own rules. And so no matter what the corporate mission values are, they get translated differently at a local level. So I wasn't surprised to hear that. We've heard other examples, like the Milwaukee incident with Dontre Hamilton, where Starbucks employees called the police because of a black man sitting outside the store. And as a result of that, I think they called 3 times, and on the third call, a police officer came, and Dontre ended up losing his life as a result of that. So I think we can't trivialize, but we can't sensationalize the reality of recognizing differences and commonalities.
Then, a couple days later, we get the report that the CEO has been pretty out in the open about apologizing and trying to remedy this matter, so much that hundreds, if not tens of thousands of employees of Starbucks are about to do some mandatory bias training, almost all on the same day. That reaction from the CEO, how did you feel about it?
Well, first of all, I think it's unprecedented that a CEO would make this statement and this. They're going to lose money, actually, as they go through this. And so making that sacrifice to save the brand is unprecedented. What I will say is this does seem to be reactionary. I would also, I I'm not a Starbucks employee, so I don't know what other types of trainings that they do. I do know that they are an advocate for social justice. And so, GLBT issues, having gender-neutral bathrooms are a piece of what they're about. And so it goes to show that you can be on the right side of some things, but still miss some other things. And so one of the other things I think is going to be important with these trainings is that they actually get to the root of it. I think it's too easy to say that to play the race card, so to speak, because I would imagine that the people who did this or called the police would say, I'm not racist. So how is it that a non-racist person could do something that we would call racist? And I think there's some nuances to this particular thing that we have to address. And I think it's this intersectionality that I hope that they address in the trainings that they do. Otherwise, they'll miss an opportunity to actually help employees. And so intersectionality says that there's more than just one way that people interact with each other. And I would imagine that race played a role, that the perceived socioeconomic status of the folks played a role, the possible mental illness or mental wellness of the individuals probably played a role. And then in that complexity, they're able to make those, what we would call racist decisions, and say that I'm not racist because of the complexity of how they came to make the decisions.
So many variables.
So many variables.
So in the case here, you said it's unprecedented. Do you think a company as large as Starbucks or as small as Teresa's should be looking into bias training before an incident happens, from the top all the way down to the person on the front counter?
I think they do. I think particularly large corporations spend time doing it. The problem becomes looking at the complexity of those situations. And so the upper level management, senior management can't be in all the places all the time. And so it really requires that the heart and mind of the frontline staff be cognizant of what it is that the organization is trying to do. And in this particular case, how to protect the brand. And unfortunately, that's part of, I believe, part of the motivation. Also to be a good social responsive company, but I do believe that saving the brand is also important.
When you're doing your workshops and teaching your lessons here in the Twin Cities, are there any particular points that come up, based on the fact that there might be a large Somalian population, Hmong population, things of that nature around here that sharpen the focus, if you will, or is it what training happens here in the Twin Cities should be equal to or even more so than Chicago or other communities around the country?
Well, first of all, context is everything, right? So wherever people are gathered and how they're gathered is important. And so in our local community, looking at our Hmong population, looking at our African-American population, our Liberian population, our Somali population, our Scandinavian groups of folks is extremely important. So our mix and how we do trainings here, although maybe universal, but how they're applied here is very different, or should be very different than, say, Philadelphia or New York or Boston. Because in Minnesota, we have Minnesota Nice that is sometimes referred to as Minnesota Ice. And so those things have to be taken into consideration.
Is there anything else in particular to try and make it a local aspect that when you've gone to do your workshops that you make sure to impress upon the people who are there? Just one or 2 points in particular that would be good for our audience to hear.
Yeah, I would suggest that whatever you know or don't know, whatever your parents taught you or didn't teach you is not your fault. However, as adults who have come into an age of responsibility, it is now our responsibility to do something about that. So whatever interaction you didn't have with people is, again, not your fault, but it is now your responsibility. Just like the blind spots in your car. You didn't make them, but you take responsibility for them every time you drive.
All set, Joe?
I wasn't rolling.
Ha! I hope. I'm praying it's okay.
Oh, it's all good. It's an iPhone.
Yeah. Well,